Good evening, everyone. We will call the City Council meeting to order for Monday, November 4, 2013. First order of business is the roll call. Heidi.
Estes, Peterson, Lewis, Doyle, Wright, Scott, Nordstrom, Roberts, Clayton, Laurenti. We have a quorum.
We will now welcome Ron McLaughlin from Hillsview E-Free Church to do our invocation. You are welcome to participate, but not required.
Pray with me. Father God, we just thank you and praise you for this night. And Lord, I thank you for being a God that's in control. God, I thank you for these men and women in this room that are about the city's business. I thank you for their leadership and their willingness to serve in the way that they do. And bless them tonight, God, with wisdom and discernment. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Thank you, Pastor Ron. We are now on the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as is? Motion by Peterson, second by Scott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are now on to awards and recognitions, and if Richie Nordstrom would join me down front for the Homeless Awareness Proclamation, along with Carrie and Mary Ann, if they're here. We have a proclamation to present regarding homelessness. Whereas the definition of homeless is persons that lack or who lack permanent housing. Is someone who is living in a place not meant for human habitation, perhaps living in an emergency shelter or in transitional housing. A chronically homeless individual is someone who has experienced homelessness for a year or longer, or who has experienced at least 4 episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years and has a disability.
Thank you. Whereas chronically homeless people are among the most vulnerable people in the homeless population and tend to have high rates of behavioral health problems, including severe mental illness and substance abuse disorders. These conditions may be exacerbated by physical illness, injury, or trauma, and consequently result in frequent use of emergency services, crisis response, and public safety systems. And whereas on any given night in the region, there are more than 500 homeless men, women, and children sleeping in shelters, cars, and on the streets and other locations not meant for human habitation. The primary reasons for homelessness are the inability to pay rent, substance abuse, and lack of transportation. And whereas ending homelessness is critical in the vitality of families, businesses, and communities in Rapid City, South Dakota, the only lasting solution of homelessness is permanent, affordable, safe housing located near jobs and services. And whereas far too often we attempt to treat the symptoms of homelessness instead of its root cause. The time has come to stop managing homelessness and start ending it. And whereas Rapid City is ready to transform the way it responds to homelessness to ensure that a lifetime on the streets will be unheard of and unimaginable to children by knowing who's out there, addressing safe, affordable housing, and tracking our progress. Now, therefore, Mayor Sam Quaker and the City of Rapid City Council accept the 100,000 Homes Campaign Community Challenge, a national movement of communities working together to find permanent housing for 100,000 of the country's most vulnerable homeless individuals and families by July of 2014 by getting to know the chronic homelessness and focusing our efforts to help move them to a permanent housing and supportive services they need to be safe and become self-sufficient. Anything else?
Anything, Karen? I'll do the declaration.
Okay.
And now, therefore, we both proclaim it as this month as Homeless Awareness Month. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much for this recognition and proclamation to for some of our citizens in our community that are the most vulnerable. I encourage you during this season of thanks and rejoicing and joy and celebration to think of those that are least fortunate and come visit places like the Cornerstone Rescue Mission and the Hope Center downtown. We appreciate your support.
If Clayton Heap could come up along with Kitty Kinsman. We have an executive proclamation to present regarding secondhand smoke. Whereas there are 7,000 chemicals in secondhand smoke, hundreds of which are toxic and 69 of which are known to cause cancer. And whereas exposure to secondhand smoke has immediate adverse impact on the cardiovascular system, damaging blood vessels, increasing likelihood of clots, heart attacks, and strokes. And whereas secondhand smoke increases the risk of emphysema, lung cancer, and other chronic diseases and causes premature death in children and adults who don't smoke. Tobacco use is responsible for 1,000 deaths in South Dakota annually, including most of the 620 lung cancer deaths. And whereas each year the state of South Dakota spends approximately $274 million on health care costs for tobacco-related illnesses, these health and economic costs are shared by every South Dakotan, regardless of whether they smoke. And whereas grassroots volunteers in our state have worked for more than 25 years to pass legislation to reduce the harmful effects of smoking and secondhand smoke. In 2009, the South Dakota legislature passed and Governor Mike Rounds signed House Bill 1240, prohibiting smoking in all workplaces and public places, including bars and restaurants, except for hookah bars, but that's another story, and I digress. Whereas South Dakota voters approved the statewide smoke-free law on November 2010 ballot by a 64 to 36% margin, there was nearly 14% decrease in heart disease hospitalizations from 2009 to 2011, the years before and after enactment of the smoke-free law, and an 8% drop in hospitalizations for respiratory illnesses. And whereas the drop in heart attacks and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease hospitalizations resulted in a cost savings of nearly $5.5 million for our state. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Sam Quaker, Mayor of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim Monday, November 4, as Smoke-Free South Dakota Day. Thank you very much.
And council members, I just want to share that I was around in 1985 as a Secretary of Health for the state of South Dakota when some of these larger initiatives started. So it really has been a long journey, and we appreciate all the public support. There have been a lot of business leaders, volunteer leaders throughout the years, many of which I've had a chance to work with since the 1970s, and I'm not that old, that just have really made an incremental difference and resulted in the law passage in 2009. And we all take it for granted now. And young people don't know what it's like to go into a restaurant or a workplace anymore and have smoking. They've forgotten already. It's a good thing. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing. Isn't it great to go out at night and go home and not smell like a stale ashtray? Isn't that terrific? Thank you. And thank you, Mayor. And you're right, hookah bars are smoke.
Yes, they are. I do not see any general public comment items. Have I missed anyone? Otherwise, we will move on to the remainder of our agenda. We'll move on to mayor's items. This is a report from Rapid City Public Libraries Board. And we'll now recognize Rod Pettigrew, our chair, and Marianne Rohr, our vice chair.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Rod Pettigrew, Board Chair of the Rapid City Public Libraries, and I have with me tonight Marianne Rohr, who's Vice Chair as well. The Board really wants to thank the Council for allowing us to do our job in searching for a new library director. A 5-month search was conducted. My memory serves me correct, we had around 24 applicants from across the country. Through a series of phone interviews, video conferencing with the candidates, and over a period of 5 months, we narrowed our list down to 2 candidates. We scheduled an on-site visit for these 2 candidates. Unfortunately, the same week the blizzard hit, so one candidate was stranded in Denver for 3 days, and one was stranded in Minneapolis for 3 days. So all of our plans we put together, meeting the council, county officials, citizens, kind of went by the wayside. But I always try to put a positive approach on things, and I thought this would be a great way to see how these people work under fire and under intense pressure, and we got to see that firsthand. Following their on-site interview, the board met a few days later, and we voted unanimously to select James McShane for our new library director. Each of you have a fact sheet on that. I thought I would just go through it briefly here for those in the audience. Mr. McShane most recently was the library director of the Camp Memorial Library in Suffield, Connecticut, and will start as our new library director the last week of December. Mr. McShane brings to us a position of 30 years of experience in the public library field. He has earned a master's degree in library science from Indiana University. He has garnered library and management experience at such locations as Hamilton Windman Public Library in Massachusetts and Topeka and Shawnee County Public Libraries in Kansas. His interests are varied, include music, playing numerous instruments, as well as language studies, including Latin, Russian, Tibetan, Icelandic, Danish, and most recently, Japanese. I've also attached just a small bio that we've put together. He's native of Long Island, New York. He began playing the violin at 19. I'm a musician as well, so I think a musician on board is a good thing. He switched his major to English and General Studies at New York. He enrolled at Indiana University in Bloomington for a graduate English degree and switched to library science in 1989. He worked at Queensboro Public Library as a Slavic language specialist, moved to adult services, division manager at the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library, became director of the Hamilton Windman Public Library in Massachusetts, and in 2004 he took his current position as director of the Kent Memorial Library in Suffield, Connecticut. As you can see, he plays numerous instruments and speaks multiple languages. The board believes he will not only be a great director at the library, but he will also be a great asset to the city of Rapid City. We feel very confident in our decision and look forward to a very positive and innovative working relationship with Mr. McShane. In closing, I would like to commend Terry Davis. She's our interim library director. She's home ill tonight and couldn't join us. This process would have been much more difficult without Terry. She's very hardworking, very dedicated, and stepped in and assisting our search and helped us through this entire process. As you all know, the library has been under the scope the last several months, and Terry has not dodged any bullets. She's invested an enormous amount of time and has taken some heat in the process and has done an outstanding job. She has made this very difficult process very palatable. This time, if you have any questions for myself or Mary Ann or comments, we'd be more than happy to address those.
We have a motion by Peterson to acknowledge, and we have a second by Lewis. And we'll go to Steve Laurenti. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rod, I just want to thank you and Vice Chair for the great work you've done. Obviously, it's been a very challenging time for the library, but you've made this transition very smooth. And I just want to thank you and the board, the rest of the board, for all of the hard work that you guys have put into this. Obviously, this candidate is more than qualified. And my only question about the candidate, and I'm hoping you know the answer, is whether this new director is a Yankees or Mets fan.
I know he was asked that, but I'm not a sports person, and so I don't remember those things.
I can't say that I approve at this point without knowing that answer. So, but thank you, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Rod, again, as Alderman Laurenti said, I want to express my appreciation of the board going and putting all the work through in order to find a new director. And my question is generic to everyone that comes here, is that if you're not a native of our area, do you know what prompted him to want to come here?
I think he's in a fairly small facility now. He's worked in larger facilities, and talking to some of the people that we contacted on his resume, he feels like that he's probably being underused where he currently is. And he's up for a larger system, and as his credentials show us, he's very capable of running our libraries.
Okay. And I know Connecticut does experience snow, so he's familiar with snow.
Yes, he was not surprised to see our mounds of snowdrifts when he was here for his orientation.
Did you let him know that that was a once in 60-year
Yes,
snowstorm?
he's well aware of that.
Well, I'm sure Rapid City will welcome him with open arms coming forward. Like I said, I'm just always curious as why people are looking to move to our area, because until, as you well know, and anyone who lives here, until you've experienced all 4 seasons, you never know what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
I also understand that he has family in Iowa. So, now I'll be nice. That I understand is another reason. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the acknowledgement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rod, for your leadership. We are now on consent items 3 through 61. I do not have any speaker request forms for item 3 through 61. Have I missed anyone? Okay. We are now on the public comment is now closed. We are now on consent items 3 through 61. Are there any council members, staff members that would like to remove any of these items for separate consideration? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion by Doyle, second by Lewis, to approve items 3 through 61. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now on non-consent items 62 through 107. Public comment is now open. We do have one speaker request form, and that's on item 68. And we'll recognize Brad Estes, speaking as owner of M Hill Business Plaza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council people. My name is Brad Estes. I live at 1132 Settlers Creek Place. I am the owner of Brad Estes and Associates Inc., which is owns the membership of M Hill Business Plaza. M Hill Business Plaza owns property at 1401 Omaha Street. It used to be the old corner construction property. It's between Oshkosh and Canal. The first half block has about 11,000 square foot building, L-shaped, and the next half a block is a vacant gravel lot. I have two building permits that have been approved. One is for a second tenant in the 11,000 square foot building, which requires me to add additional restrooms in that building. Right now in Oshkosh Street, there is a 6-inch sewer main. It's considered a private main. I am presently hooked up to that main right now, so this is hooking up to for using this main again. I assume if it's a private main and I border it, I must be one of the owners of the private main. So when I applied for the building permit, Brandon at engineering said that I'd have to sign a hold harmless agreement in case anything would ever happen to the main. I couldn't come back to the city. If you look at item number 64, the rezone, they have the same requirement within their package if they hook onto that main, since it's considered a private main. So anyway, that's what's going on. I saw cut the entire floor. I'm trying to make it so that I can have tenants and have improved restrooms. So all the new sewers going to the east into Oshkosh. Tomorrow, if it doesn't snow too much, you'll see a backhoe. And I'm bringing a new 4-inch water line from Canal in to hopefully be able to sprinkle the building at some later date. So I have a permit for the improvements within the building, and then the second permit I talked about is on the vacant lot. I am improving the parking lot, paving the lot, doing the landscaping, so that I have parking spaces, quote unquote, in the bank in case I find other tenants. And I guess if you have any questions.
Okay, this is the public comment period, so
Okay. Sorry.
save the questions for when we get to that item.
I've never been up here before, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. We do not have any further speaker request forms for items 62 through 107. Have I missed anyone? Seeing none, public comment for those items is now closed. We are now on item 62, and we'll go to our Legal and Finance Chairman Chad Lewis. Item 62.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 62 is the first reading of Ordinance 5963, an ordinance amending Section 17.06. Excuse me, I got to put on my glasses. Or maybe not. Going for Bruce Willis to look more like Benjamin Franklin. Okay, there we go. Rezoning of the described with property as requested by Renner and Associates, LLC of Rapid City for an independent school district rezoning from high-density residential to public district for property generally described as being located at 516 South Street. and I move approval in conjunction with the associated comprehensive plan amendment.
Motion by Lewis, second by Scott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 63.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 63 is the first reading of Ordinance 5966, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the described property as requested by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers, Inc. for a Pilot Properties LLC for rezoning from general to commercial district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Neal Street and Bernie Street. And I move approval.
Motion by Lewis, second by Roberts. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 64.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 64 is the first reading of Ordinance 5967, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of the Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the described property as requested by Sean Kroll for Paula Efta for rezoning from light industrial district to general commercial district for a property generally described as being located at 1412 Oshkosh Street. And I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Peterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 65.
Item number 65 is a request by Jake Berger for the Borger for preliminary subdivision plat for Tract S of Fountain Springs Business Park, generally for a property generally described as being located in lane south of North Plaza Drive. I move approval with stipulations.
Motion by Lewis, second by Laurenti. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 66.
Number 66 is a request by K. Kurtz. Anybody? Construction LLC for preliminary subdivision plan for lots 17A and B in Block 1 of Gemstone subdivision. Property generally described as being located at 520 and 522 Topaz Lane, and I move approval with stipulations.
Motion by Lewis, second by Roberts. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 67.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 67 is a request by Perry Bisick for a preliminary subdivision plan for lots 14A, B, 15A, and B in Block 1 of Gemstone subdivision. Property generally described as being located at 508 and 512 Topaz Lane, and I move approval with stipulations.
Motion by Lewis, second by Laurenti. Did I get that wrong? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 68. We'll go to our Public Works Chairman, Richie Nordstrom. Richie?
Thank you, Mayor. Item 68 is authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a release and hold harmless agreement with M. Hill Business Plaza LLC. I move to approve.
Motion by Nordstrom, second by Clayton. Any discussion? One abstention. Brad, do you need to say anything else? No. Bonnie Peterson?
I have a question for our attorney. Joel, I just wanted this agreement. This is pretty standard. I just want to make sure that we're not doing anything special for our council member, that this is standard procedure for anyone that would apply.
I mean, yeah, we always try to look at logic as well and not try to make people do things that don't really make any sense. And at this point, since that's where the line is, that makes a lot of sense. I think the last time this came up, there was a question, and an example I had is there was somebody that was within 400 feet, but in order to connect, they would have to run a line across their neighbor's property. And at some point, there was intended to be a sewer main in their street in front of them. So rather than make them connect, even though they were within 400 feet, we allowed them to rebuild their septic system at that point.
Yeah, I think I might remember that case. Okay, thank you.
And we'll go to Chad Lewis. Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say you should stop by the property sometime because Mr. Estes has done a great job of changing what was an old construction lot into a very well landscaped, nicely renovated retail space that's bringing in good sales tax, I'm sure, for the city, and I have zero problem voting for this. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item number 68? All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries with one abstention from Brad Estes. We are now on alcohol beverage license applications and liquor license renewals, items 69 through 107. We will handle these all at once. Are there any? Chad would like to pull all of them for separate consideration. Request is denied. Would anybody like to pull any of these items for separate consideration? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve items 69 through 107? We have a motion by Laurenti and a second by Roberts. Pauline, do any of these need separate discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Public hearing is now open for 108 through 111. We do not have any speaker request forms. Have I missed anyone? Okay, seeing none, public hearing is now closed for items 108 through 111. We are on consent items. Item 108, we have a motion to approve item 108. Motion by Lewis, second by Peterson. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. We're now on item 109. Chad, can you read item 109 into the record?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 109 is second reading of ordinance 5960, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the described property as requested by Doyle Estes from a low-density residential district to a medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located northeast of Catron Boulevard and Highway 16 intersection. I move approval in conjunction with the planned development designation.
Motion by Lewis, second by Roberts. Any discussion on item 109? Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries with one abstention from Brad Estes. Item 110.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 110 is the second reading of ordinance 5961, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the described property as requested by Doyle Estes from General Agricultural District to Medium Density Residential District for a property generally described as being located northeast of Catron Boulevard and Highway 16 intersection. I move approval in conjunction with the planned development designation.
Motion by Lewis, second by Nordstrom. Any discussion? Brad Estes.
Again, Mayor, I'd like to abstain from this.
Can we just have a special section for Mr. Estes?
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries with one abstention from Brad Estes. 111, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 111 is second reading ordinance 5962, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the described property as requested by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Inc. for Andrew J. Severson from rezoning from low-density residential district 1 to low-density residential district 2, district for tract 2 and tract 4 less lot H lot of Pineview Terrace for the property generally described as being that's it. Mine's cut off.
Do we have the generally located as, Brett? Can you help us out?
Located in the city of Rapid City. Do we need that for the record?
I think we do.
Okay.
Does somebody have item 111 up if they can pull up the link?
Yes, sir. Can you hand it to me?
Go ahead. We'll go to Brett Limbaugh.
Okay, general location is at the southwest corner of the intersection of Park Drive and Wonderland Drive.
I move approval in conjunction with the planned development designation.
We have a motion by Lewis and a second by Laurenti.
Mentioned by Estes. Oh, no. Sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Bill list, Pauline Sumption, our finance officer.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one addition to the bill list to Hills Materials in the amount of $1,158.16, bringing our new grand total to $6,548,958.67.
We have a motion by Roberts and a second by Nordstrom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Scott, second by Roberts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned, 7:06 p.m. Congratulations and have a good evening.
I didn't know we had it in us.